This time we will tell a manhwa titled Ranker Return. This manhwa tells the story of a high-level former pro player in a game arena, where in this game our main character is known to be great and legendary because he creates many miracles and kills very strong monsters. However, because the main character felt that nothing could match his strength anymore, he felt bored and deleted his player account. But due to an economic situation, he finally returned and will create a new history in the game. Then how is the continuation of the story? We start the storyline. The story begins with a strong boy fighting the scorpion boss alone in the middle of the desert. The boy bravely stood before the giant scorpion king. With the high-level one-hand plot armor and weapons, the boy attacked furiously. He jumped and then slashed the tail of the dungeon boss. You can see flashes of all the skills used by the boy, who succeeded in tearing the entire body of the scorpion king. The dungeon boss quickly shattered into pieces. The boy was the strongest player, who was bored because there was no longer a being on par with him. This player has the nickname Meleegod. Because there was nothing else he could do in the game, he decided to stop and focus on real life. Sometime after Meleegod stopped playing, there was someone with the nickname Young Chan alias Kwon Young Chan who was surprised. Where is Young Chan? This is a friend from Meleegod, aka our MC's name, Hyeonu. Young Chan reiterated why he had to stop, even though he has high level and rare items. With a normal look, Hyeonu leaves without answering anything. The story begins to change. At first, Hyeonu is the son of a rich man in Korea, but after Hyeonu joins the military service, Hyeonu's father unexpectedly falls ill and his company goes bankrupt. Because of that, Hyeonu became poor and was forced to work part-time at a mini-market with little pay. After returning from his part-time job, Hyeonu received news from his old friend that Kwon did not give up and offered Hyeonu to return to the game arena. But at that time, Hyeonu didn't answer anything and again just walked away while remembering his player account. It didn't take long for Hyeonu to go to the mall to buy a game console. But how shocked he was, seeing the price of the A-Cube console or the tools to enter the game is very expensive. If the price is calculated, it can even take 3 months of his salary. Hyeonu regretted deleting his player account while looking at the contents of his wallet, which had no money at all. Not far away, a man and a woman appeared and asked Hyeonu, but Hyeonu doesn't know who it is. He soon remembers that his name is Young Hanbeek, the delinquent son of his father's partner. Kang Hanbeek starts bullying Hyeonu that poor people don't have the right to go to the mall. But even though he was belittled like that, Hyeonu just ignored it and intended to leave the two of them. But Young continues to bully Hyeonu. Not long after that, Young said that the bankruptcy of Hyeonu's father's company was none other than his doing. Hearing this, Hyeonu was speechless and shocked. Young is not satisfied with bullying him and continues to provoke Hyeonu to be angry. Of course, eventually, Hyeonu's patience ran out and he immediately landed a punch Young right on the head. However, the fight was stopped when Young's bodyguard came and took him out. But before that, Hyeonu threatened that if he did that again, he would destroy everything he owned. Then after the incident earlier he contemplated while walking in the rain. Hyeonu felt annoyed and sad to hear Young's words earlier. In the rain, Hyeonu thinks of taking revenge but doesn't know what to do. In addition, he heard conversations from people passing by on the street that there are people who make millions just by streaming arena. With a look full of revenge, Hyeonu thought about returning to the arena. Without thinking, Hyeonu called Young Chan and said that he would return to the arena. Meanwhile, in another place, there was a discussion in the Game Master's office that there was a user named Meleegod. Some of them were shocked to learn that Meleegod was back. One of the admins was very surprised to see a new user named Meleegod doing a perfect tutorial. And now it can be seen that Hyeonu has entered the game and uses his player name, Meleegod. With strong determination, Hyeonu is ready to take the next step according to registration from the game arena. Apart from that, he also got a sword even though it was low level. But for him, this was enough to complete the registration tutorial. Next, according to the initial registration, Hyeonu starts with a test tutorial at level 10. Now he is dealing with a level 10 Dark Elf. With a dual sword weapon, Hyeonu begins to attack. While the admin who saw this was very surprised at how relaxed Hyeonu was against a level 10 Dark Elf. Meanwhile, Hyeonu himself was only level 1. Short story when the tutorial had started, where it didn't take long for the Dark Elf to attack, but Hyeonu easily managed to withstand the attack. It's a shame because the sword being used is of a low level, it's starting to melt. But here Hyeonu is not worried and continues to survive. Watching him from afar, Adam was amazed why a level 1 seemed to be able to fight a level 10 monster. It turned out that the reason why Hyeonu was able to fight a Dark Elf monster was because of his previous experience. Even though he used a low-level sword, but he could max out that sword with his perfect mastery of hers. So it's no wonder that he can survive and even attack the Dark Elves until they are overwhelmed. Meanwhile, on the side of Hyeonu, it starts to heat up when he remembers what Young said this afternoon at the mall. Then, with an overflow of anger that was still burning, Hyeonu attacked until he succeeded in tearing the monster apart. Again, this makes the admin just speechless and speechless. With the defeat of Dark Elf, Hyeon-woo managed to clear the tutorial phase. After that, Hyeon-woo got a gift box for his victory. After getting the box, Hyeon-woo was happy because he got a unique item in the form of a ring containing a giant spirit. This item provides additional effects such as strength plus 50, constellation of 50, and giant strength, which will add strength to your stamina with a cooldown duration of 2 hours. Shortly after that, Young Chan contacted him and wanted to know about his news and asked him to meet him. But Hyeon-woo refused because he wanted to make a certain item. In ancient times, there was a high-level item. The item was a potion XP which could make players add 20% SP for 24 hours. And this exposition is used by almost all the hardcore players in the arena game. The price of this item is quite expensive at 3,000 gold. It's just that now this potion supplier is gone, and over time, players forget about this potion. It turns out that this potion was created by Hyeon-woo, therefore Hyeon-woo wants to try making it again. The hardest to find are 10 Amira First Leaf, and the only way to get all the ingredients is by entering the dungeon. Hyeon-woo finally decided to go to the dungeon. There, Hyeon-woo was surprised to see that his dungeon was being occupied by a guild called Black Skull. It turned out that in front of the dungeon, there was a guard from the Black Skull. Of course, because he has no authority and has a low level, the guard stops him. However, because Hyeon-woo was stubborn, he couldn't help but the guard drew a sword at him. Hyeon-woo then took hold of the guard's weapon. Then Hyeon-woo got angry and challenged the guard to a one-on-one duel with the bet that the loser had to delete his game character. With an irritated face, the guard accepted Kang's challenge. After that, the system starts sending duel messages with the option to accept the duel or not. The two of them began to choose to accept, and the system began to count down the duel time. In the countdown, Hyeon-woo began to summon his weapon. Hyeon-woo promises to finish the duel in just 5 minutes. Hyeon-woo's words irritated him even more. Then the duel ensued. Without further ado, Hyeon-woo lunged and started slashing the gatekeeper of the dungeon. But the gatekeeper easily dodged and started making fun of Hyeon-woo as a new player. Meanwhile, the attack launched by the guard was also easily parried by Hyeon-woo. With a low-level sword, Hyeon-woo withstands the continuous attacks from the guard. As a result of that, the guard assumes that Hyeon-woo has a unique item. By using all the abilities of the guard, he still can't hurt Hyeon-woo. Hyeon-woo, who was getting bored with this battle, finally activated his unique item in the form of a ring. And with an instant increase in strength, the attack launched by the guard was easily reflected by Hyeon-woo, and the guard was hit by a lot of hard attacks from him. As a result of the repeated attacks, the guard felt that he could not win. Therefore, he just held on and waited for the gap to pass. But instead of looking for a gap, a large aura figure came out of Hyeon-woo, which made him scared. And at the end of the story, the criminal was finally defeated and had to delete the player's account according to the agreement at the beginning. The story changes to a room or workshop named Aslan's Workshop. There, Kang began to concoct all the ingredients obtained. Then, with the ancient method that Hyeon-woo knows, it becomes a rare item that can give players a 20% XP increase for 4 hours. Hyeon-woo then tries to sell the potion on the game marketplace. A few moments later, all the players in the game arena were shocked, because this rare item that had not been traded for a long time appeared again in the auction shop. How surprised they were to see the price of this item, because in ancient times it was only 3,000 gold, and now touching the price of 5,000 gold. While walking, Hyeon-woo thinks about the effort in producing Excelliar XP. Hyeon-woo starts calculating the profit because the currency in the game is the same as in the real world, where the price of 1 gold is equivalent to $1, and with the profits from selling the XP potion, Hyeon-woo can finally upgrade his weapons and armor. With his previous knowledge, he also bought a leather coat with a wind effect, then he bought reed mole leather pants which gave several effects. Lastly, he bought a sword, namely Sharp Longsword, which gave him a few extra chapters. With that, Hyeon-woo returned to the city after conquering the dungeon there. Next, Hyeon-woo starts hunting monsters so his level can rise quickly. Hyeon-woo starts slaying some of the wolf monsters, but Kang feels that his level is too slow because the enemy is too weak. With Hyeon-woo's skill in slaying those all wolves, the quest he did was completed. In every minute in the dungeon, Hyeon-woo felt appreciated, and a few moments later Hyeon-woo started heading for the next dungeon so Hyeon-woo could quickly level up. Arriving in front of the dungeon prayer, it turned out that there were already many players waiting and forming parties to enter the dungeon. Finally, Hyeon-woo tried to find a party, but no one wanted to be a member because Hyeon-woo was considered a new player. After walking to and fro, suddenly there was a beautiful girl who asked Hyeon-woo to join the party, because that girl lacks players. Without further ado, Hyeon-woo's face turned macho and ready to take this woman anywhere. The woman introduced herself named Somai, who is a level 2 praise. Hyeon-woo also introduced himself as a level 20 warrior, even though he was originally level less than 10. Because in this arena game player status cannot be seen by other players, as a result Hyeon-woo lied so he could join his party. Then the others introduced themselves: Choi Jinwoo Warrior level 24, then Park Seline Archer level 22, and finally Jia Mage level 23. They were a little doubtful about Hyeonwoo joining the party, especially Jinwoo. It seemed that he was very doubtful to the point of arguing with Somi. Finally, the 5 of them accepted Hyeonwoo's presence and immediately entered the dungeon. The story begins with a group of goblins who surround them. They started fighting and Hyeonwoo was quite surprised because this was the first fight with the party. The battle ensues, the goblins begin to attack with poison chopsticks, and Jinwoo the warrior tries to block the goblins' attacks. Then the archer and mage started dealing damage to the goblin hordes. Hyeonwoo began to pay attention to them and wondered a little why they would accept him as a party. Finally, they had been hunting for 1 hour against the goblins. They looked overwhelmed. As a result, they rested for a while. Meanwhile, Hyeonwoo, who still had energy, continued to attack. Seeing this, Somai and Celine were very surprised by their fast attacks. Shortly after that, Somai asked Jinwoo to rest longer. As they continued their break, Hyeonwoo asked if they had ever fought a dungeon boss, and it turned out that only Jinwoo had. The rest were new players like Hyeonwoo. As the party leader started, Jinwoo gave his instructions. It turned out that it was true that the team Hyeonwoo joined was very weak. They couldn't coordinate the fight well, and even their attacks were very reckless, especially Somai, who always gets the timing wrong. Not only that, but Celine also made a mistake and even injured her friend. A while later, after making their rounds, they sensed a large monster, and it was true that the dungeon hobgoblin boss was sitting in his king's chair. Jinwoo without delay gave directions to fight the small goblin while providing support to him so that he could last longer from the small goblin's attacks. Soon Hyeonwoo started lunging and he got a chapter from his party mates. Together with Jinwoo, Hyeonwoo began to exterminate goblins with his speed and was assisted by Jinwoo. But the weather turned around when the hobgoblin launched an attack, where the attack launched by the dungeon boss was so big that it knocked Jinwoo with his armor thrown far away. Seeing a dangerous situation, Hyeonwoo asked his party to regroup while treating Jinwoo, who was injured. Apart from that, as a result of this, the attack pattern they formed failed miserably and everyone looked scared. As a result, because of her fear, Celine shot the monster inaccurately, even hitting Hyeonwoo's hand. But luckily Hyeonwoo was able to avoid and divert the direction of the arrow toward the dungeon boss's eye. This was used directly by Hyeonwoo to carry out attacks that made large wounds on the monster's body. But that hasn't killed the dungeon boss yet. Because of that, Hyeonwoo asked everyone to launch an attack to kill the monster. As a result, their efforts finally paid off by successfully killing Hobgoblin. Meanwhile, after defeating the goblin, Jin and Woo looked annoyed. Why was everyone proud? Even though Hobgoblin was a low-level boss dungeon. After that, they get 4 prizes in the form of a mysterious path egg, a lot of money, and a spellbook. Meanwhile, on the side of Hyeonwoo himself, at first, suspected that his party was bad people, but in reality, they were new players who had just entered the dungeon. So naturally, since entering the dungeon they were all scared except Jinwoo, who was experienced. After everything was finished, Hyeonwoo only took the path egg, the rest was distributed to Somai and others. Hearing that, Somai was very happy because she got the spell book, with Somai happily telling her to hunt another time. And the good news is that when you see the status, you don't feel that Hyeonwoo's level is now 10. Then, so that he is not underestimated anymore, he goes to the tower to update his status. The tower has often been nicknamed the Tower of Advancement, where each floor represents a different class. This tower looks like a mall because it contains a lot of things regarding classes, items, and so on. Players who have just leveled up to 10 have to go to this tower. In the previous dungeon battle, Hyeonwoo got an egged path which will hatch after 1 hour, where the egg will appear as a path in this game. Hyeonwoo enters the class tower, and there Hyeonwoo met the warrior class manager named Khan, where he is a player examiner to test whether he is suitable to become a warrior class. Just for info, the game entitled Arena is a game in the MMORPG genre, where the player really can be whatever he wants. Shortly thereafter, Khan took a sword and gave it to Hyeonwoo to start tagging Hyeonwoo's way of fighting whether or not he was suitable as a warrior. Hyeonwoo caught the sword and prepared to fight the examiner. With 1 step of movement, Hyeonwoo began to slash the examiner quickly. The examiner was quite impressed with his abilities and concluded that Hyeonwoo was no stranger to a sword. And the examiner thought that Hyeonwoo was not an ordinary player. He was better than the warriors in general, who were only at level 10. A fierce battle took place, and Hyeonwoo's attacks were all parried by the examiner. And immediately the tester issued a skill called Strike, and as a result of that skill, Hyeonwoo was immediately bounced off by the attack. The examiner then immediately issued a second attack, but Hyeonwoo quickly turned his body and used his hands as a fulcrum to immediately reverse the second attack from the examiner. With a shocked face, the examiner pushed back and thought that Hyeonwoo had his way of swords and didn't follow other traditional ways. The examiner was sure that Hyeonwoo had a natural talent for swords in his life. After resisting the tester's attack, Hyeonwoo immediately slashed with his sword toward the examiner's neck. Feeling that the examiner couldn't win, he finally admitted defeat and revealed that Hyeonwoo had won by a landslide. The results of this test, Hyeonwoo gets the warrior class, where it adds strength and constitution by 10, and he gets the passive skill warrior axe knowledge from Khan, which gives him an attack effect from weapons increasing by 5%. Not only that, but Hyeonwoo also gets an active skill, namely a mystery weapon, where attacks from weapons increase by 10%. Then the bash skill comes forward and swings the weapon, the examiner's same skill, strike skill, where to fill the weapon with magic and make the swing even stronger. Furthermore, Hyeonwoo received a new quest from the examiner. He gives an active gold coin called Meet the Knight of Kyeonu quest with level E and reward a skill called Lebron. As told in the Lord Game Arena, Lebron is a knight who leads the arena game as well as the strongest person in this empire. Hyeonwoo's face was happy because he would get the skill of the strongest person. Hyeonwoo, who didn't want to waste his time, rushed away from the tower. Hyeonwoo is happy to get the hidden quest because the requirements for getting the quest are very rare, and he is a lucky player. Then Hyeonwoo decided to raise his level to level 50. A few moments later, a pop-up appears where the egg that Hyeonwoo got earlier will hatch. Hyeonwoo started checking the eggs in his inventory. It turned out that the eggs had hatched and were shaped like cute little bears. Hyeonwoo was shocked because the pet he got could talk. While Hyeonwoo was playing the arena game, he just saw a talking pet, and he thought that this pet was a unique tier, and he also thinks that his pet can make a lot of money. Bear then raised Hyeonwoo's head and said that he could serve him. The pet ordered Hyeonwoo arbitrarily. In annoyance, Hyeonwoo immediately slammed the bear to the ground and a fight ensued. Then a pet window appears. It is explained that she is a marionette type pet that has the spirit of bear skill and forest blessing. Because the pet didn't have a name, Hyeonwoo finally gave the name Tangi, which means stupid bear. Tangi enthusiastically invites his master to go on an adventure, but Hyeonwoo planned to log out because he was exhausted. Then finally Hyeonwoo logs out of the game, considering he's been in the game all day. Then Young Chan into the room Hyeonwoo and asked what he got today. Hyeonwoo replied he got class and fate. Young Chan asked what class again and are you ready to do it? Hyeonwoo did not understand Young Chan's words. Hyeonwoo then asked what he meant. Young Chan explained that he would be making his debut as a streamer. Hyeonwoo started to get confused. Hyeonwoo thought that before his streamer in the arena could earn a lot of money. Then Kang asked Young Chan what to do as a streamer. Young Chan replied that Hyeonwoo only needed to record all the games he was doing, and Young Chan will make a video clip of Hyeonwoo's game to be posted on the World Arena. Hyeonwoo is pessimistic about becoming a streamer, but Young Chan persuades him that he will become his manager. Because Young Chan is sure that the previous strongest Hyeonwoo or Meleegod player appears as a streamer, surely thousands of people will flock to watch it. With a little optimism, Hyeonwoo promised to meet his expectations, Young Chan. Sin changed back into the game, to be precise in the western Black Forest area, where Kang starts his first hunt with Tangi the stupid bear. Hyeonwoo started grinding and leveling in this Black Forest zone. Then he lunged while teaching Tangi to join the attack. But unexpectedly suddenly Hyeonwoo's body lights up and gets a bug, namely the spirit of bear. How surprised Hyeonwoo because it turned out that Tangi was a type of pet support, not what he expected, namely the type of tank. Tangi gives a chapter in the form of the spirit of bear, where he can increase 5 strange and constitution for 5 minutes and cool down for 1 minute. The technique also provides a forest blessing skill that increases defense by 5% and recovers 0.1% constitution every second for 5 minutes. And now he's in front of the dark elf. With the power of Tangi, he's getting stronger and slashing the elf with ease. It turns out that Tangi is more useful than imagined. Then Hyeonwoo returned to hunting. In the distance, a shadow appeared behind a tree watching him. Turns out it was a group of people planning to prey on lowly players like Hyeonwoo. The group intends to take the items from Hyeonwoo. They then began to carry out a strategy to immobilize Hyeonwoo. So why do they think that Hyeonwoo has low? Because usually people who pass here are no more than 20 levels below. Moreover, Hyeonwoo is now hunting alone. So this group will easily rob items owned by Hyeonwoo. So here the plan of the group is quite brilliant, where they approach Hyeonwoo and ask him to join the party. While the response from Hyeonwoo himself is to suspect him, considering his experience this often happens. And their characteristics are that they are always in groups and already have a high level and special abilities that support the party. So seeing that the group was complete and had high level weapons 9 made Hyeonwoo sure that it was player killer. And instead of rejecting their invitation, Hyeonwoo even thought he would invite them, so he finally chose to accept and start hunting. On their way, they encounter many dark elves. Of course, Hyeonwoo didn't waste time attacking the dark elves alone. Meanwhile, the killer group was also preparing to stab Hyeonwoo from behind. But their efforts always fail because Hyeonwoo slashes and then hides continuously. Annoyed by this, finally, the killer group looks for an idea. And for an hour they got the idea that they would let Hyeonwoo face the dungeon boss himself. They think Hyeon-woo will be in trouble and tired, and when Hyeon-woo is off guard they will stab Hyeon-woo and take the item. But luckily Tang Geo, who was behind the tree, overheard the killer group's plan. And then Tang-gi, who didn't want his master to be in danger, told him. But instead of intending to run away again, Hyeon-woo instead planned other things and taught them lessons while recording to be used as content by Young Chan. Furthermore, Hyeon-woo was invited by the killer group to directly fight the boss monster. But Hyeon-woo refused their invitation because he already knew that they would kill him. Then Hyeon-woo reasoned that because the level he wanted to achieve had been met he would log out. And even though he joined, he was only a burden at his level, which was still 10. Hearing those words, they were all worried, because if they couldn't persuade them, their initial plan would fail. The group is still trying to invite him by praising Hyeon-woo as a very great player. Long story short, because he couldn't refuse, finally Hyeon-woo joined to be able to start his plan. It wasn't long before they were confronted by the Dark Elf boss there. However, what they were fighting was not the boss. It turned out that there was a figure from behind, the chief Dark Elf. This elf was different from before because from his hand came a light that formed a sword. Meanwhile, Killer's group was getting ready to start the killing spree when the warriors came forward to block the elf. For Hyeon-woo to come forward and carry out the attack, Dan Sanga Archer is ready to shoot Hyeon-woo with poisoned arrows, but their plan fails miserably when the archer is harassed by Tang-gi instead of shooting his friend. As a result of that, their plan failed miserably and the remaining warriors in front were finished off by the Dark Elves. While on the one hand, Hyeon-woo told one of the living warriors that from the start he knew their plan. Those words made the warrior angry, but Hyeon-woo quickly finished off the warrior, while the archer from a distance attacked with his skill. But with Hyeon-woo's abilities now he can slash and finish off all of the group. So now only the Dark Elf is left who hasn't been killed. But quickly he can finish off Chief Dark Elf with ease and immediately logs out to give this video to Young Chan. Young Chan, who saw this, was amazed and will find an editor so that this video appears in good proportions. The story goes from Young Chan, who started looking for a good editor for Hyeon-woo's video, but Young Chan couldn't find a suitable editor. However, due to an accident, Young Chan also found an editor named Elise, where the person is known as a ghost in cyberspace and has good skills in video editing. Therefore, Young Chan was interested in inviting her because Elise has the nickname the Maestro in the world of arena video editing. The panel changed to a fairly dark room and there was one person who, like a weeb, was selecting files on his computer. When he clicked on a video, how shocked he was to see a video from Hyeon-woo. It turned out that the person was the video maestro, Elise. He was very impressed with Hyeon-woo's hunting actions and fought one-on-one with the Dark Elf boss. Back in the forest, Hyeon-woo suddenly felt goosebumps, but suddenly he got a random skill book gift in the form of a rare item, which is where if learned can get a new skill. When Hyeon-woo opened the book he was very surprised because a bright light came out and Hyeon-woo got a new skill in the form of blood replaced with blood. The skill called Very Strange, where it can ignore 10% penetration of enemy defenses. Hyeon-woo is very happy about this. The panel changed to Young Chan's place, where he was very happy with Elise's edits to the extent that Hyeon-woo's video could penetrate up to 150,000 views and was very popular. Hyeon-woo's solo video with Boss Ninja amazed everyone. And unexpectedly, he was watched by one of the top officials from the New York business manager named Kalf. He was very interested in Hyeon-woo's video. He was very impressed with the solo he performed at such a level, where Hyeon-woo succeeded in slaughtering all the paler killers and beating up the boss monsters alone easily. The story changes to the Black Forest, and Hyeon-woo is leveling against the goblins in the forest. At that time we were shown Hyeon-woo who slaughtered all the goblins and the help of buff from Tang-gi who grinding monsters. So the hunt this time was very easy. Then Hyeon-woo opened the status window and saw that he was already level 24, where he has a strength of 55 plus 68. Then Hyeon-woo also opened the status window for Tang-gi, where Tang-gi now has level 15. Seeing this, Hyeon-woo got excited after seeing Tang-gi who had leveled up. Next, Hyeon-woo began to resume hunting to raise the level. When going to slaughter goblins, Hyeon-woo saw an item and he took the item. Turns out it was a goblin necklace made of fangs. Previously, he had never seen such an item in the arena game. Not long after, a piece of pop-up news appeared. Suddenly Hyeon-woo got a new quest in the form of a quest for the successor to the Prairie Wolf tribe. Next, Kang started checking the quest. It turned out that the quest was D+ level, where Hyeon-woo is required to reach a certain level. This quest told him to return the necklace to the chief named Raccoon. For this head of the Raccoon tribe to appear, Hyeon-woo had to be acknowledged first by boss monster Dakin, the champion of the prairie. Hyeon-woo started to think about how to be able to complete this quest, and he knew he had to be at least level 30 before he would fight the Dakin boss monster. Hyeon-woo immediately leveled up to reach level 30, but hunting was very long and tedious. Therefore, to level quickly, Hyeon-woo needed a party. From a distance, Hyeon-woo heard an explosion and paid attention to that direction. He assumed that the sound was the sound of a magic explosion. Then a magic caster was seen leveling nearby. The magic caster chanted low-tier magic arrow and fireball, where the magic hit the forest monsters and instantly the monsters were burned. The mage's name was Mason. He was currently doing his hunting and found it very difficult, because a self-leveling mage was extremely difficult, especially when his potions and mana ran out. When Mason sat on the ground, he felt something terrible behind him. Without thinking, Mason immediately turned around and attacked with his magic skills. He was surprised that what he attacked was not a monster but a player. The mage apologized but was wondering why Hyeonwoo was able to dodge melee magic attacks so easily. But never mind. As a result, the two of them got acquainted. Mason felt that Hyeonwoo was a very strange person because of his flashy clothes and carrying a talking teddy bear. While Hyeonwoo praised Mason that his magic attacks were very fast and his spells were fast too. Mason thinks Hyeonwoo is a player killer, but he's sure because Hyeonwoo's clothes are like that. They finally shake hands and form a party. The panel moves somewhere in the Black Forest. There was a member of the Black Skull Guild named Sean and his friend Gain. It turns out that they are friends of the gatekeeper of the dungeon who was named Junwoo at the beginning of the story. He has now returned with his new account and intends revenge against Hyeonwoo. Therefore, he is determined to be strong and will oppose Hyeonwoo when he is ready. The panel changes to goblins lying charred. It turns out that it was the result of grinding Hyeonwoo with Mason. The two of them used the grinding method, which was effective in making Hyeonwoo become. Then they lured the monsters to one point, and then Mason was in charge of carrying out an area attack to kill all the monsters. This method is done repeatedly until the XP that is obtained is very large and fast. After 5 minutes later, another orc appeared who had an intermediate level. But with Hyeonwoo's current abilities, he immediately cut the orc easily. And from a distance, Junwoo appears surprised to see Hyeonwoo leveling in the same place. Without thinking, Junwoo, who was full of revenge, attacked Hyeonwoo. But with very fast reflexes, Hyeonwoo kicked Junwoo's face hard and was knocked back by his two friends. And Junwoo brought up an old incident when Hyeonwoo dueled him, which resulted in him losing and having to delete his ID. However, Hyeonwoo ridiculously forgot who he kicked earlier. Junwoo was annoyed and recalled his name to Hyeonwoo. About that, Hyeonwoo just remembered that he was the guard he defeated at the dungeon gate. Also, he's stupid. Instead of appreciating Kang's attitude, Junwoo is here to challenge Hyeonwoo again, but he will be assisted by two executives. But Hyeonwoo thinks that he is not afraid of them. One of the executives is angry with Hyeonwoo's words. Then Mason reminded Hyeonwoo that their level is 60 and Hyeonwoo should be careful with them. But in fact, Sean Dangain is not interested in helping Junwoo. Junwoo, who didn't want to be embarrassed anymore, finally told the two executives not to run away and that he would report if they didn't want to help him. With a sigh, Sean immediately hit Junwoo hard. While on the side of Hyeonwoo, who wants to level up faster and see development so far, he decides to invite Shawn to a duel. Who loses must delete their ID. The offer was accepted by Sean. However, he suggested that the battle this time was 3-on-3, where later there will be a 1-on-1 duel until all are defeated. Then before long, the fight begins, where Hyeonwoo will face Sean. Mason looks worried because the one Hyeonwoo is fighting against is level 40. Then a shield appears and the duel begins. Without further ado, Sean immediately slashes with his big sword at Hyeonwoo. But Hyeonwoo easily dodged and counterattacked quickly and managed to slash Sean in the neck. All of them watching were shocked by the incident. Moreover, Sean's attacks can be easily avoided by Hyeonwoo. While here to provoke Sean, Hyeonwoo said that he would finish with only 13 slashes. The words made Sean emotional and he continued to attack. But again, Hyeonwoo managed to dodge and attacked quickly while carrying out a slash, which was then ended by an uppercut, which resulted in Sean falling. Seeing this, everyone fell silent and wondered why a level as low as Hyeonwoo could beat level 40. Hyeonwoo emphasized that a level is a number. What is more important is experience and ability in fighting that makes him this strong. And he is also a great player who doesn't rely on items in battle but is a strong player who has a variety of skills. The second fight started, but in just 1 second Gain immediately lost with a very fast slash without any resistance. Junwoo was silent and didn't move to see Gain's defeat. Again, Junwoo didn't give up. Instead, he told Hyeonwoo that he would lose his ID again by him. Seeing the arrogant nature of Junwoo, Hyeonwoo remembers that he is very similar to Young. Surprisingly, Junwoo's heart beats fast, and the arena system detects something abnormal. The system unexpectedly gives a gift to Junwoo, where surprisingly Junwoo enters berserk mode and has a great killing aura. With that power, he immediately directed the attack on Hyeonwoo. However, because of his experience, Hyeonwoo managed to avoid it and started carrying out attacks with the giant strength skill, which made Junwoo fall to the point where the surrounding land was destroyed. With that, Hyeonwoo managed to win the duel with a versus player. Meanwhile, Junwoo loses with his head crushed. Then Hyeon-woo gets some items from the fight earlier. While Mason was very surprised by this victory because usually fighting higher players is very impossible, so the moment was very historic for Mason and he now idolizes Hyeon-woo as a role model in his life. Then Mason sends friendship to Hyeon-woo and as a result, they become friends in game arena. Hyeon-woo has now reached level 31. While Tangi invites Hyeon-woo to rest first, but he thinks differently and Hyeon-woo wants to complete the quest to meet Dakin. Considering that he has fulfilled the conditions, he must be level 30 to start this mission, and when he checked, it turned out that this mission was active. Then Hyeon-woo started looking for Dakin's whereabouts in the Black Forest, but he had been looking for him all this time and didn't find clue at all. And finally, those who were tired decided to rest, but unexpectedly when they were near a tree a pop-up appeared that said, "Do you want to enter Dakin's house?" Seeing this, Hyeon-woo was shocked because it turned out that the location of Dakin was hidden. It didn't take long for him to enter the house. Inside, it turned out that a large orc was already standing carrying a sword behind him. It turned out to be Dakin, so Hyeon-woo immediately gave him the raccoon necklace. But in reality, it wasn't Hyeon-woo who gave the necklace directly. He was toying with Dakin a bit. He did this because he thought it was impossible that the quest was this easy, because he remembered that Dakin had to confess. He was still thinking about what the true meaning of the quest was. While thinking, suddenly the orc grabbed Hyeon-woo and threw it. It didn't just stop there, the orc was ready to slash toward Hyeon-woo. But here Hyeon-woo managed to dodge and strike back. But in reality, the attack failed when unexpectedly the orc moved nimbly and hit back Hyeon-woo to the point where he lost a lot of HP. Then Hyeon-woo asked for help from Tangi to give buff. Initially, Tangi refused, but finally, he did it and Hyeon-woo Maker got up and started the attack. Hyeon-woo and Dakin's fight was so fierce that it destroyed Dakin's house. But finally, the fight ended with Hyeon-woo giving up because he couldn't beat him. Dakin said that the quest doesn't say you have to defeat Ku. Just by making Dakin admit it, it's enough for Hyeon-woo to be able to complete this quest. After finishing all this, suddenly from behind an orc figure appeared who turned out to be the head of the raccoon tribe, where surprisingly raccoon emits a large aura that is very influential for players who are nearby, where all statuses decreased by 50%, while in a corner Hyeon-woo thought that maybe he could face the orc with his current strength. But luckily this battle didn't happen because Kang Hyeonu stopped it. It turns out that Kang Hyeonu is Raccoon's successor, but isn't annoyed at his father who is always hard at training, which makes him often run away. So Raccoon intends to put the necklace on Kang Hyeonu so he can't escape. The effect of this necklace is quite crazy, where someone who wears it can be said to be like a dog. Use it like a tracker or Desuman from anywhere. With everything that has been solved, finally, this mission is completed and Hyeon-woo gets a lot of XP, as well as his level and stamina have been raised and restored. And the most important thing is that he gets a new skill called Magic Condensation. This skill is very useful and has the effect of being able to use magic twice as much. After all is done, Raccoon gives a new quest to Hyeon-woo, where Hyeon-woo was told to deliver his words and to find the whereabouts of Kang Hyeonu. Accepting this level D+ mission, Kang Hyeonu is very happy because the rewards are quite large. Let's end the story here first. Next, the story of Hyeon-woo is still exciting and tense. Then what surprises will happen next, we'll wait for the next part.